Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Eastwood for Life fan, and this is part 2 of my Charles Bronson DVD and Blu-ray movie collection. Now, I ended part 1 with the movie Death Wish, and after the movie Death Wish, Bronson really hit worldwide stardom, and he was one of the biggest movie stars by the mid-70s, and he was hot property where he was earning $1 million to $1.5 million per movie. And the first movie he made after the success of Death Wish was this movie Breakout, where Bronson plays a helicopter pilot given the job to help a prisoner escape from a Mexican prison. And in this movie also stars Robert Duvall and Jill Ireland, as well as John Huston and Randy Quaid. And this is a bit of a light-hearted affair and quite humorous for a Bronson movie. And this is the only Blu-ray edition of this movie out there, and it's a German release that was released 3 or 4 months back. And Breakout, it's an okay movie. His next movie, Bronson teamed up with Walter Hill, who made his director's debut in this great movie Hard Times, where Bronson plays the character Cheney, who is a prized fighter in the 1930s. And also James Coburn is in this movie, who plays Bronson's manager. And this is a must-see and must-have movie, Hard Times. And this edition is the UK release, which was put out by Eureka. And this has a fantastic 4K transfer of Hard Times, which I checked out. And the transfer is beautiful. So this is definitely one for all Charles Bronson fans. Next movie, Bronson went back to making westerns, and this one, Breakout Pass, which was taken from the Alistair MacLean novel. And this one's a mystery western on the train. Bronson plays a character by the name of John Deacon. It's okay, it's not as hard-edged as some of his other westerns, but this is the Kino release, US release. And Bronson's next movie was the first of 9 movies with director J. Lee Thompson, and this is a crime caper, where Bronson plays a crime novelist in Raymond St. Ives. And also in this movie is the beautiful Jacqueline Bisset. And it's not a hard-edged movie, but it's okay. And this is the American DVD release of this movie, of St. Ives. Then another western that Bronson was in. It's a romantic comedy western, From Noon Till 3, with Jill Ireland. And this movie, Bronson has one of his best acting roles, as it's not the usual type of western that Bronson normally appears, but it's okay. And this is the Twilight Time release of this movie, From Noon Till 3. Then the next movie that Bronson made was a TV movie based on true events. And this one's called Raid on Entebbe. And this is based on a true story where there's a hostage crisis in a Ugandan airport. And Bronson's not really in this till about 45 minutes into the actual TV movie. And Bronson got paid pretty good money for only 10 days filming, and it's not bad as TV films go. And this is the UK DVD release of Raid on Entebbe. And then another Western. This is another J. Lee Thompson movie, and this is the second movie they made together. And this is The White Buffalo, where Bronson's on the trail of a white demon buffalo. And as silly as it sounds, it's not a bad Western. And this is the Kino release of The White Buffalo. And Bronson's next movie was a spy thriller, Telephone, directed by Don Siegel, which Bronson plays a Russian military man on the trail of a terrorist, played by Donald Pleasance, who targets the US. And also in this movie stars Lee Remick. This is part of a double movie twin pack with St. Ives, and this is the best edition of Telephone out there, and this is an American DVD release, because a lot of the other Telephone movie editions are full frame, but this has the wide screen, and this is normally a cheap buy in this Charles Bronson collection. Then the next movie that Bronson made, this is 1977, and he made a movie called Love and Bullets, where he's sent by the FBI to go all the way to Switzerland to smuggle a gangster's mistress, that's played by Jill Ireland, and bring her back to the US to testify. And also in this movie, Rod Steiger and Henry Silva. And it's okay, this movie. And this is the Scandinavian edition of Love and Bullets, and this badly needs a Blu-ray release. And then on to 1980, and Bronson makes another movie with J. Lee Thompson. This is the third movie in their partnership, and this is Cabo Blanco, where a lot of critics actually claim that this movie is a Casablanca rehash, and it also stars Jason Robards, and this is set in the 1940s in South America, Peru, where Bronson tries to uncover a hidden treasure buried by the Nazis. And this was quite an expensive movie to make at the time, but I didn't really find it all that great. I found it average at best. Not one of Bronson's better movies, and this is the US Kino edition of Cabo Blanco. Bronson back to more better roles, and this is Death Hunt, and this is a personal favourite of mine, and this is directed by Peter Hunt, and this also stars Lee Marvin and Carl Weathers and Angie Dickinson in this movie. And Bronson plays a lone mountain trapper, and this is set in the snowy mountains where Bronson is fighting for survival as he kills a man in self-defense, and then Lee Marvin's gang try to bring him in to arrest him. And this is a great Charles Bronson movie, an essential Bronson movie. And action-packed and plenty of violence in this one. This is based on a true story. Death Hunt. Then Bronson finally made the sequel to Death Wish, and as he returns in making this movie with British director Michael Winner. And this time Paul Kersey is living in LA, where tragedy hits home hard again, this time involving his housekeeper and his daughter. And this movie is even more violent and brutal than the first. And this is the uncut US edition put out by Shout Factory, which was released end of last year. And this is the first time this movie's been put out as fully uncut in the US. And it's just good to see this movie uncut. And also Lawrence Fishburne has a early role as a mugger in this movie. And I also have a special edition of Death Wish 2, and this is like the German media book. And actually this edition came out before the American Blu-ray edition, and this contains the DVD, Blu-ray and the book, and this does have a English audio, and this was limited to 888 copies, so I mainly bought this for a nice collector's item. Death Wish 2, a must have Charles Bronson movie. Then Bronson returns and makes another movie with J. Lee Thompson, and a lot of the movies in the 80s and 90s were with J. Lee Thompson. And this is 10 to Midnight, where Bronson plays Leo Kessler, a LA detective who is in the hunt for a serial killer who's killing young women. And again, this is a highly violent movie. This is the Twilight Time US edition of 10 to Midnight. And this is more of a slasher movie, and it's a pretty good one at that. 10 to Midnight. Then another J. Lee Thompson movie, and this is The Evil That Men Do. And this movie, along with Death Wish 2, in my opinion, are Bronson's most violent movies. And Bronson plays a retired CIA assassin who comes out of retirement for one last job, as he goes undercover to try and track down a doctor of pain and torture. And again, this is a brutal, violent movie. And this is the UK DVD edition, and this is supposed to be uncut compared to the US edition of The Evil That Men Do. But highly enjoyable Bronson movie. And Bronson returns in Death Wish 3, in the last film with Michael Winner. And this movie is a little bit more over the top and far-fetched with the Paul Kersey character, as they really try to make this more like a Rambo movie, as Bronson returns to New York to visit an old wartime buddy, and as he arrives on the scene, his buddy dies more or less in his arms, and then Bronson goes on the rampage again. And they actually filmed a lot of this movie in London to bring the cost of this movie down. Death Wish 3. Then Bronson made a TV movie, and this is called Act of Vengeance, where Bronson goes up against a corrupt miners' union boss. And acting performance, this ain't too bad for Charles Bronson. There's also in this movie, Ellen Barkin is in this movie, and a young Keanu Reeves. And it's not bad for a TV movie. And this is the German DVD edition of Act of Vengeance. And on to the last stack of movies of my Charles Bronson collection. And this is a 1986 movie, Murphy's Law, where Bronson plays Jack Murphy, an LA cop on the run as he's framed for murder. And while Bronson is on the run, he's actually handcuffed to a loudmouth female petty thief. And for a cop thriller, this was pretty humorous. And even though it did get a little bit panned, this was enjoyable. This is the US edition put out by Twilight Time of Murphy's Law. The next movie I have is the rather disappointing Assassination, where Bronson plays bodyguard to the First Lady of the United States, played by Jill Ireland. And this movie isn't one of Bronson's better movies. And this is the Kino US edition of Assassination. And after the failure of that movie, Bronson made the fourth in the Death Wish series, and this is Death Wish 4, The Crackdown. And this Death Wish movie is actually directed by J. Lee Thompson, and it's a lot more calmer after the Rambo-like Death Wish 3 movie. And in this movie, Bronson takes on a drug cartel, and again it's still highly violent, as you would expect in the Death Wish movies. And another J. Lee Thompson movie, this is Messenger of Death, where Bronson plays a journalist who investigates in a religious organisation with a possible tie to criminal activities. And although Bronson is pictured here on the cover with a firearm, he doesn't actually use any firearms in this movie. And it's an average movie. This is the 88 Films edition, the UK edition of Messenger of Death. And at this time Bronson was kind of playing less physical and demanding roles, as he was getting a little bit more older. This movie, Kinjite Forbidden Subjects, another J. Lee Thompson movie where Bronson is hell-bent on trying to break up an organisation that uses young girls for prostitution. And this is the US edition of this movie. Next movie I have, this is The Indian Runner, written and directed by Sean Penn, also starring Viggo Mortensen and Dennis Hopper. And this is a crime drama, and I don't know too much about this movie, so I recently bought this and have yet to watch this movie, The Indian Runner. But this is the only English audio edition of this movie. And the next movie I have is The Seawolf, where Bronson plays a captain of a ship who rescues a shipwrecked millionaire played by Christopher Reeve. And it's good to see Bronson in a different type of role in The Seawolf. And this is the German DVD edition of this movie, which does have an English audio. And then the last Death Wish movie, Death Wish 5, and Bronson is in this movie with British actress Leslie Ann Down, and this movie had a rather disappointing finale, as this had more of a TV theme feel about this movie, Death Wish 5, as Bronson takes on a mob boss in this movie. And actually this movie was filmed in Canada to bring the cost of this movie down. This is the only edition on Blu-ray, and this is a Scandinavian edition which does have an English audio. But pity about the last Death Wish 5 movie, because they could have really ended it in style, as Paul Kersey was a great character. And the last few movies that I have with Bronson is actually TV movies that he appeared in. And he made 3 of these TV movies. Family of Cops, that's the first one. Family of Cops 2, and Family of Cops 3. So that is all my Charles Bronson movie collection. And also I want to send a big shout out to a well-known YouTuber who is also a Charles Bronson fan, and he goes by the name of Chris Jones, based in Wales. And even though I have a fair Charles Bronson collection, he has a 100% Charles Bronson collection. So please do check his channel out and his Charles Bronson videos, as he goes more into depth into the career of old Stoneface Charles Bronson. So please check him out, Chris Jones. And I'll finish this video off with a little extra add-on of my personal top 10 Charles Bronson movies. Back again, and this is my Charles Bronson top 10 movies. And I haven't included a couple of movies. They are The Great Escape, The Magnificent Seven, and The Dirty Dozen. And they're all fine, great classic movies, but I didn't include them in the top 10, as Bronson wasn't one of the main stars in those movies. Anyway, number 10, I have the highly violent The Evil That Men Do. And I know this will surprise quite a few people, as acting wise it's not that great a film, but Bronson in a high violent movie taking out criminals is a great joy to watch for a Bronson fan. So that's my number 10 choice, The Evil That Men Do. Number 9 is Rider on the Rain. Great Charles Bronson performance in this French thriller. Probably one of Bronson's better acting performances in Rider in the Rain. Number 8, the Death Wish sequel, Death Wish 2, And again, another high violent movie. And it's just great to see Bronson taking out criminals and thugs in his style. Number 7 is a Euro Western, Red Sun, which I enjoyed. Good Western. And number 6 is a Charles Bronson kick-ass movie as Bronson takes on the hitman and a gang of hoodlums and Mr. Majestic. So that's from number 10 to number 6 onwards. So the last 5. And in 5th place I have Bronson in Death Hunt. And number 4, Charles Bronson in Michael Winner's The Mechanic, classic Charles Bronson movie. And then number 3, a great director's debut in Hard Times. And Bronson played a prize fighter in this, and he was in fantastic shape in his early 50s actually. So that's a great movie, Hard Times, which leaves the last 2 movies, which I think most Bronson fans will kind of guess which ones are left. And number 2 is the original Death Wish movie, Bronson playing Paul Kersey, the vigilante. And number 1 had to be Once Upon a Time in the West, and Bronson's role of harmonica is such a great acting role, where Bronson plays the hero and steals the show in this movie. So that is my entire Charles Bronson collection and top 10. So guys out there, if you want to post your comment of your favourite Charles Bronson movie, do so. Be good to hear what your opinions are, and feel free to sub and all that stuff. And I will see you all in the next video. Take care guys.